So yeah, episode 5 of The Rings of Power. Ooh, ooh. What can one say about it? I hope y'all hear the enthusiasm and the the calls of grandeur and joy for me watching this episode. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not a gigantic Lord of the Rings fan. I actually love the movies. I read the books when I was a kid, but I don't obsess about it. So a lot of this history I don't really understand nor know. So I could totally get if I was like knew the absolute history of this or remembered it. I'd probably be really pissed at this show. I really would. And I think for good measure, and I totally understand fans when they're upset about this. But at the same time, I'm trying to judge this show just by what I see on screen. And this was an episode that, you know what, I probably would have thought a little bit more about it if it wasn't for like a few really cringe-worthy scenes that just made me go, oh, it like I just rolled my eyes. I just literally rolled my eyes at the scene. Like you just couldn't have done that scene any worse. You could not have done this show any worse by having that scene in it. You just couldn't have. You just literally couldn't help yourself, Amazon. They want us to know in episode 5, well, I say episode 5, but episodes 1 through 5, that Galadriel is the protagonist. Totally get it. Totally get it. Totally understand. Galadriel is our protagonist. Galadriel is our protagonist. Fine. But you know what? If you wanted her to be the protagonist, maybe you shouldn't have had so many dang storylines. Maybe you would have given her more of a character arc. Maybe you would have made her likable. Maybe you would have picked an actress that can actually act. Or something along those lines. But it's something about the smugness of that character that just annoys the ever-loving crap out of me. I hate that character. I'll go so far as to say Galadriel might be the single worst protagonist in the history of cinema. Might be. Show, movie, doesn't matter. I have yet to see any protagonist that is as weak as what she is when it comes to overall feel and acting of it. They try to make her, it's weird how they try to make her the most powerful person on screen, but then at the same time make her the most unlikable person on screen. It's like if you were running if you created a class and you were wanting to tell how not to write female characters, Galadriel would be almost word for word, emotion, feeling, the way she looks when it comes to the smirks on her face, like she feels like she's better than everybody, her tone, everything, her body language, everything would be how you would say, that's not how you write a female character. In fact, that's not how you write a protagonist at all. That's not really even, I wouldn't even like her if she was a villain. Like, she is so into herself that it's sickening. It's literally sickening. And I'll tell you the scene that completely and totally ruined the episode for me. And you might say, well, that's nothing. It's when she's getting on the boat at the very end. And they do this like slow motion where she gets on the boat and her hair is in the breeze. And she is just walking around and looking around at all of the the men around her that are bowing to her presence, which really doesn't make that much sense, are staring in awe of her because she's so brave and noble and strong and everything. And it was gut wrenchingly woke and gut wrenchingly just terrible for my eyes. I just could not imagine how somebody saw that when they were in the editing table and was like, that's the scene right there we need to keep in. No, that's like the worst possible scene to keep into that. That completely took me out of this episode. Completely took me out of it. Made me have a completely different feeling towards it. And I will say this, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't hate on this show so much. I probably wouldn't. Because I still think it's like a mediocre fantasy, at best and at minimum. But I don't feel like it goes into the awful part. I don't feel like it ever elevates itself to above average either. Ever. It just completely has been consistently average. But oh man, she puts it on the brink where it's just like god awful. Oh, I just can't even stand her character. Uh, and Galadriel and Halbrand's conversation and how she, when you're talking about what is her story, what drives her, and when they're having that conversation, I thought that was the most telling of showing just how one dimensional of a character she really truly is. Because she's like, oh, it just does. Like, I'm driven by, I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not chasing Sauron. Like, seriously. Like, I totally get it. Her brother died. But my goodness. Like, we did not get enough backstory of her brother and her to make us care 2 cents about him, nor do we feel like she should be spending her life driven to avenge him in some form or fashion. I mean, I could totally understand it if she was like, like, oh man, if only I would have fought, if only I would have been there, something along those lines, or if he would have died because of some mistake she made and she tried to make herself better. Totally get that. You want to add that? Please, Amazon, add that. But don't do what you're doing with this. Just please don't. Because this is this character is so one-dimensional that it's pathetic. That professional writers could write her this way. A character like Galadriel, which is a fan favorite, and you've turned it into like the worst protagonist of all time, is just reprehensible in my eyes. Tolkien would just be rolling in his grave if he saw the way they're treating these characters. But I'll try to move on from Galadriel. Try not to go on too big of a rant about it. Gil-galad, and that's another one, I guess, that kind of, it bothers me. Why are they making Gil-galad into such a creep? Like, he seems, or it just kind of feels like the elves in general. The elves are the most emotionless creatures. Like, they have no feeling. They all act like they're reading off of a cue card, especially Elrond. Oh my goodness. Elrond, as much as I love the actor that's playing him, and I like some scenes with him when it comes to him and Durin, it just feels like they're so stiff. And it's so strange. I don't know why the characters are made that way. Like, they're supposed to be, these warriors, these ones that are, powerful and stuff. And instead they just feel like, what they feel like? Billboards. They feel like actual straight up billboards. Like when you're driving down the highway and you're looking around and you're seeing the scenery and your eyes just catch a billboard, but you just glance right over it, never reading the writing on it. That is what they feel like. The elves feel like in this one. And as far as Gilgalad, why are they making him give off these villain vibes? I don't understand that. They're making him act like he is the most untrustworthy person in all of Middle Earth, which is to me a little bit crazy in a way. And as far as this mithril story goes, I mean, I guess it sounds cool, sort of, but I just feel like I don't know if I believe it because Gilgalad is so, I don't know, menacing in this one. Like literally menacing. Like he never says anything that's like straight up evil or anything, but he just acts like somebody that just hangs in the background to go stare at people and, go, shake his hands and go, ha ha ha. Like in this weird Dr. Evil laugh. Like it's just weird. So I don't know if I necessarily believe the mithril story, but we'll just have to see. I think we'll get a little bit more of that in episode 6. But as far as Elrond and Durin, look, I've liked their characters so far. I have said that the dwarves were the most interesting aspect of this series so far. The most compelling story. The only characters that I seem to really care about in this, and I like Elrond simply because he fits into that narrative. He flows with the dwarves. He's friendly with the dwarves, and I feel like Elrond's best scenes are when he's with Durin, where he's showing compassion and showing in conversation that he's more than just background. Like that is when he's at his best. Now, as far as, well, I just wish I'll just say this one last thing about the elves. I just wish that all the elves were that way, because we get Galadriel, we get Elrond, we get Gilgalad, and I'm just like, they all so stiff? Like it just feels like bad storytelling. It feels like something that you would never see Tolkien write. And I know I'm trying not to go back to the books, but I'm just feeling like from a writer perspective, Tolkien could write those characters so much better than Amazon can, which is so strange. Because, they pay these guys big bucks to be talented and to, give their best work. And it just feels like every show that comes out now from Hollywood is almost like the writers' main focus is on trying to really cause fans to hate the show that they're supposed to like. That's the way it feels. And it feels kind of that way in this show too. But I'll tell you one thing, when it comes to Adar. They've made his characters slightly mysterious, and I like that. I will say this show does have some mystery behind certain things. First you had the broken sword of Sauron's or whatever. That's now a key. And then you have, the whole thing when it comes to, who is Adar? At first we thought, well, could it be Sauron? I still don't believe it's Sauron. I still will say it's Halbrand. Has to be Halbrand. One, it's 2022 and he's a white character. It's got to be Halbrand. Like it's got to be, and I guess you could put Adar under that thing as well. But I just feel like Adar getting so mad at Waldrick for even mentioning Sauron's name. So I mean, he's like, I'll worship you. I'll do whatever, whoever you are. I'll be your servant and all that. And man, when he mentioned Sauron's name, you just see the look on Adar's face like, ooh, don't even say that name to me. Which is so strange because it makes you wonder, you know, for Adar to have such control over the orcs, then how did Sauron gain them unless Sauron killed Adar? Or something along those lines, or I don't know. It's strange at to maybe how the control went to Adar, and how the and how without Adar being there that they took Sauron in so much. Because I mean, technically the orcs were supposed to follow Sauron in the first place, but it's weird. It seemed like they're venturing towards this Adar, and you think Adar's this guy that he's working with Sauron. He's like a lieutenant, and then but when you hear that name, man, he gets pissed. So it kind of makes me wonder: do they have conflicting goals? Is he maybe trying to make himself powerful? He did make that one statement that maybe someday he'd be a god. He did make that statement. So maybe Adar's got plans that he might be working with Sauron, but not exactly working with Sauron. Maybe be double crossing him, or either Sauron hasn't come into the picture as of yet for some reason. I don't know. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But see, that's a little bit of the mystery that I will say I do actually like about this show. I thought that was a really just a dick move when it come to what Waldrick did to that boy. And I didn't understand from a Dar's standpoint too. Because I'm like, the old man, you're like, the old man, here, come kill this young, strong boy. And shouldn't it have been like the other way around? Because why would you want the old man in your army? It really couldn't make sense. It seemed like you'd wanted the boy more than you'd wanted the old man. Like that would have just made more sense to me. But unfortunately, that did not work out. That did not really make sense. But I mean, just I guess probably the last thing that I can thank God Almighty for is that we got very little bit of the Harfoots. And that's a blessing. Oh Lord, is that a blessing? I thank our lucky stars above, because any second that the Harfoots are on screen are moments where my eyes feel like they are bleeding from just how stupid they look and act, and how waste of minutes of my life that it takes away. That's the way I feel towards them. And it's made me, you know what? It's made me not care about the stranger, simply because I know that if the stranger is involved in a scene, that we're going to have to get something about the Harfoots. And that in itself is like, no, I'll pass on knowing who he is, as long as you don't show me the Harfoot. Please don't show me the Harfoots. Now, I will say, off topic of when, the stranger is involved, the evil looking guys in the white robes, looking at the stranger's crater. I don't really know what to make of that. If you were, it's going to be funny if they're good guys, because those are the kind of people that if you saw them walking down the street, you would probably walk the other way. Like, because, when you look at it and you go, that's Sauron. You would literally think of it in that regard. That person's evil. Like, the worst evil. The main antagonist of the show. Like, it would almost seem that way. But I'm like, that is way too on the nose if they go that way. Like, way too on the nose if they have it going that way. Because that dude, when he turned around from looking in that crater, I was like, oh my goodness. please don't let these be good guys because, like, they're going to give off some really eerie vibes because they got evil just like soaking right off of them. But, anyways, guys, man, I guess I had to rate this episode 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10. Oh, I'll go with 5 out of 10. Simply because there were just so many scenes that shouldn't have been there. The Isildur scenes I didn't like. I didn't like Arondir scenes. Like, those were really stupid, and I just didn't really care about the scenes about how slow the orc army is moving towards these basically children and peasants and everything. I didn't really like that aspect of it. I don't like Galadriel. I don't like her storyline. I don't like the Harfoots, even though they were barely in it. I don't like how Gil-galad is found as this creep. The Mithril story, if true, might be interesting. But again, because they made Gil-galad into such a creep, I don't know if that even is true. You know, a lot of mystery. A lot of mystery to it. But we'll just have to see. But anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think of the episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave a comment down below. Like, subscribe. Y'all take care.